Good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm going to take a session on JMeter. So let me just start with the agenda. So the agenda for this session is like I'll just give some brief introduction about what is JMeter and what is the purpose and where we will be using this, and we'll see how to create some tests using this JMeter. And once we create the test, we'll be this is basically to execute the some to apply some load on the some software, and then we want to check the performance of a system. So here I'll be showing something like how to generate the load, and once we generate the load, how do we execute that script with all the load which is configured, and at the end we'll see some kind of results and how do we analyze those results. So the first one is like the JMeter introduction. So this JMeter is a open source tool. It's we can download. It's a Apache open source tool, so we can download from the portal. We can create something like the functional automation test cases, or we can also create some kind of test cases to perform some kind of load testing. So we can use this tool if you want to test any something like networking related operations. It's like if you are having some server and there is some front end. If you are having some communication between the two systems, so we can capture that using this tool. It's basically it works as a proxy and it captures the network traffic, and we can execute the same operations again and again, and you can see how.
Let's say I have two applications. It's talking on TCP protocol. Still, I can.
It's basically something like here I mentioned the protocols HTTP, FTP, SOAP, LDP, JDBC. So in a
JDBC connector, let's say I have one database.
Yeah.
My application, how they communicate.
Yeah.
Fetch data or insert data.
Yes.
I can use this as this proxy. It makes a proxy and I can see the log.
Yes. So it's like it works as a proxy. So it's not a UI based tool. We have some other tools like Selenium and the CodeDI. These tools, these are like UI based tools. So you perform the operations on the UI and then create the scripts. It's not. This is not to generate these tests on the UI. It's basically generate the test on the communication between the two systems, and then we'll be executing that. It's like we can use this tool to test the web applications or native applications. Maybe you can I'll show you how do we record the native applications also, because it's also just some kind of communication on the mobile. We can capture that as well. And protocols, here is some protocols which supports if you want to test something like HTTP, even the secure connection also it works, and FTP, SOAP, LDP, JDBC. It's like if you want to execute some select query or something, or insert statement or something like that, some number of users. So you can also do that using this tool. It has something like a recording feature. You can record whatever the operations you are performing in the application, and then we can run that scripts. After modify, you can modify whichever the steps we want to keep, or whichever we don't want, we can change or delete those things, and then finally we can export. I'll show you how do we do this recording and all. And it's a platform independent. The Java, this JMeter is developed using Java, so you can install this in any platform, even the Linux or Mac or Windows, any platform you can do that. And there are some, if you want to make some custom functionality, or maybe you have some response and you want to pass that response and get some particular value and use that in some other place. Or if you want to write your own custom logic to write something to the file or any other thing, you can use some popular languages like JavaScript, Groovy, or Bean Shell. Some other languages also it supports. And it is like as the JMeter is mainly we use to test the performance. So we want to generate the number of users and verify how the server is responding. So if I created my scripts in my local system, and if I want to run for 10,000 users, maybe it may occupy so much of memory and some other stuff. you may not get the proper results. So for that, what we can do is like we can have some multiple number of systems, and then we can spread the load between those systems, and we can see some kind of distributing the load, and then we can see how we don't need to apply the complete load on one system. We can spread that to the multiple systems. We can do that as well. So that we can do it in the some kind of VM systems, or maybe if you are having some cloud VMs, we can also connect to that, and we can test with the multiple mode based on the load requirement. And we can also integrate this with the Jenkins TFS or any other things. There are some add-ins are available. We just need to add those add-ins, and we can execute this. So before we start with the test scripts creation, let us see some kind of what kind. Let me make it maximize. I'll keep it like this. So before we start with the test script creation, let me just explain what are the different kind of terminologies we use when we are creating these tests. So here I listed some of these things. It's like so let me directly show the JMeter so that it's easy for me to explain. So this is my JMeter. So what we need to do is like we just need to download this package from the JMeter portal. So there is once you have downloaded, you just need to extract the zip file. So inside that you will have all these folders and files. You just go to the bin folder. Inside the bin folder, I have something called JMeter. So you just need to double click this. If you are a Windows user, you may need to click on the batch file. If you are a Mac or Linux user, you just need to click on this executable file. So then you will see the UI, something like this. This is the I'm using the 3.3 version. The latest version is 4.0. So that is recently launched in the last month. So this is the UI. So by default, you just see the test plan and workbench. In 4.0, they removed this workbench. The workbench is something like when you are recording something, instead of keeping all the thing, whatever you have recorded in the test, instead of keeping everything in the test, what you can do is like you first can keep all the recorded stuff in the some dummy location, and then you can pick whichever you want the steps, and you can add those things to your test. So, and we can also, I'll also show you how do we do recording. Here is the test plan. In this test, this is the top most root node, and here we can add whatever the steps we want to perform. So it's not something like programming kind of tool. This is it's basically you just need to select the whichever the steps you want to perform and just configure those things. It's most of the thing is like just configuring whichever the operations you want to perform on the system.
Those things you extract from the workbench.
Yeah. So here you can click on this. So you just need to right click on this test plan, and when I see the ad, there are some list of things are there here. It's like the thread group is like if I want to create some tests, I first need to have some kind of thread group. So inside the thread group, I can create whatever the operations I want to perform. So the thread group is like one test suite. It's kind of one test suite, and you want to apply some number of users or some kind of load on that particular threads. Test fragment is like it's again it's a kind of reusable code. You just keep all the reusable components here, and wherever you just call those things. So to call the script is there in the test fragment, you need to use something called the module controller. I'll explain that when we go to the controllers section. And we have something like a config elements. So whenever you are performing some kind of the operations, before you execute some kind the HTTP operation or anything, so you want to have some kind of setup before you perform those tests, something like HTTP header management, cookie management, this kind of stuff. So what will happen is like when you are executing these scripts for the same user, if it is performing multiple times, so these cookies will be maintained, and it will be used for the next operations, whatever we are performing. And we have some other things like JDBC connection configuration. It is like if you are performing some database operation, you can give all the database configuration details like the source string and other stuff, so that in the test script you can just call the database statement and then you can execute that. There are some other things also. Maybe you can explore those things. We'll be using something like CSV data config. This is for to pass some test data to the test script in a CSV format, and we can execute that. There are some timers. It's like when you are executing the script, if you want to pass in between some steps, so we can use these timers. So there are different kind of timers are there. Most of the cases we use something like a constant timer or uniform random timer. These are the mostly used timers. In case if in scenario if you want to use the others, you can also play with those things. The pre-processor and post-processor is something like if I'm calling some HTTP request before I execute my step, I want to do something before executing that. So, for example, if I so those kind of things you can specify in this the preprocessor. Maybe if I want to do something login, create an account. So before I create an account, I want to have some email ID. So that is I want to generate randomly. So you can add some kind of preprocessor and generate the random number with some combination and pass that to your HTTP request. So it will be send that request. The same way, the post processor is like once you get the response, you want to extract something from the response, or you want to validate something. If you want to get something from the response, you can use this. So this is it's if you want to write your own custom code instead of using any of these things, you can choose that JS or preprocessor, post processor, or sampler. To write your own custom code using any of the languages which I explain. It's like you can write some Java code or Groovy code or any other things using this the post processor. And assertions are like if you want to add some kind of validations, I want to validate response code, or maybe some text is there in the response, or maybe any other things, execution time, all those things you can verify. The listeners are like once you complete the execution, you want to analyze the results, like how much how is the execution for each the number of load, whatever the load you have applied, how the system is responding. So maybe you want to check the throughput, response time, or then how it is executed and other stuff. We can validate that using these listeners. We can use something like aggregation report, or there are some summary report. There are some other things. I'll explain these things when we go through the section. So the list some the JMeter based terminologies. We use these things. So you will see the submenu based on the location where you right click. It won't show you all the things for all the nodes. It will just show you based on the section where you are. So I just explained what are these things. So when you create a test script, it is like the test plan is the top one. Inside the test plan, you can have something like a config element and other things. Inside the test plan, you can have some thread group. So thread group can have all these things. And here we have something called sampler. Sampler is basically if whatever the actual the test script you want to create. So that is that you can create using these samplers. All the whatever the requests you want to send, all those requests will be generated using this sampler. This sampler can have all these things, something like some listeners, post processor, all this stuff you can have in this. So if you are having some scripts like this, but when you are executing, in which order it will execute is like, so when you are executing the test script, it first executes the configuration elements. It's like some kind of database connections and all, it will first execute. And preprocessor is like before you start your sampler. Sampler is like HTTP request or whatever the request, something you want to perform. So that will be captured using this preprocessor. And then it will execute the timer, and the sampler is like all the functionality will be executed. Once the functionality is executed, the post processor assertions at the end, the results will be captured using these listeners. this is how the execution order, the script will be executed. So when you create a script, even though these steps are in something different order, but it will always execute in this order when you are running the test. So if you want to create, so I just explained the list of all the components or the terminologies what we use in this JMeter. So let's see how do we create this test and how can we use that to test something. So here you can create manually, like you just use some kind of Fiddler or any other tool and just see the HTTP request and whatever the body header, all those things are there. Capture those things and put it in the request. So that is put it in the sampler. That is one approach. The other approach is like you can use the recording. So if you want to record something, so there are two ways you can record. One is using the test script recorder. So here under the workbench, what you can do is like you can just say non-test element. That is there is something called HTTPS. You can use this for both secure and unsecure kind of applications. This, as I said, this is basically captures the proxy. So we need to specify some port, and we need to run our application in that port so that it will this tool will capture all the operations which are performed in that the port. So here I'm going to say 8090. So it's going to listen this. Before, so then I just need to say start. So I need to add some controller. Let me add some thread group. So in this thread group, I'm going to capture all the things, whatever I'm recording. So here there is something called recording controller. So all these steps I want to store it here. So if store all the recorded stuff to be captured somewhere. So and then here I'm going to select use record. Where do you want to save all the recorded steps? I can say that use this in the just plan thread group recording controller. It will save there. So once I click start, it is saying that there is something certification. So this certification need to be installed before you record anything. So this certification is located in the same bin folder. So if you want to capture the traffic from your local system, so you need to make sure that this certificate is installed in your system. Then only it will listen to that all the requests. So I have already installed, so I just need to say okay. And to listen to this port, I'm going to the Firefox browser, and I want to configure that port for this browser. So let me go to the preferences. Under the preferences, I have something called network proxy. So inside this next proxy, I'm going to say 8090 localhost. In this local system, I want to read all the traffic. So now if I perform something in this system, in this Firefox browser, all those things will be listened by this. So it's already started capturing something. Let me clear and start recording something. So you can see here it started recording all these steps which I'm whatever is there. So in this application I have some if I click something and if I search for some text, so it's capturing all the steps whatever I performed here. It's like search is there. So if you see this HTTP request, so it's using the protocol called HTTPS protocol, and it is looking. This is the URL which is the main the host URL, and inside this host URL, this is the path it is navigating, and this is the HTTP operation request. So you can so based on the request, actually it may be guest post or any other things. So it's based on these. So for example, if you see the other one, this is a get request. So it's based on the operation which you perform. Post is like you just want to send some request, something update you in your system. So along with this, maybe we need to have some kind of header and the body, all this stuff if we are having some post request. So it will capture all those stuff. And let me stop recording. Yeah. 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 So here you see some the images and other stuff. So in my application, all those things are captured. This is the post request in the yeah, yeah, maybe if you see this. Uh, yeah, we are just passing some parameters. Yeah. So these are um, the content encode you're saying. These things. That's something like some kind of parameters it needs when you are to send this request. It's kind of maybe include equals. Include equals is like it needs all these parameters if you want to get the some response from the server. Maybe it is something like what kind of things.
No get, you send a get request. You are like because I see the get request, there's something. Because you cannot send the parameter because it can be anything, any character you can use as a part parameter. So when you're sending by get method, you have to encode. So,
Right. I think you got it right. So if it is a post request, you will be having some kind of body, and then you will be sending that request, and you will get some response. So here I have used the recorded steps. Maybe if you don't want something like basically when we are testing the performance of an application, we don't need these JPG files or some other stuff. So here I didn't specify that exclude option. Maybe if you want to exclude those kind of things, there is a request filter. You can specify URL path and exclude. So if you don't want.
normally, in cloud, means if someone wants to measure that, there's a tool time, in various applications past, there's a pool of time, full time and the hot time.
Yeah, I'll be explaining. Yeah. So if you don't want to capture these JPG files, so you can just say exclude star.jpg. So when you are recording, it will not capture those things. It will only capture the remaining stuff. So if you don't have, after recording, if you don't want some of the stuff, maybe you can remove those things so that those steps will not be executed. Only the steps which are required, those will be executed. This is one way of recording. There is another way of recording is like we have a Chrome extension. So there is a Chrome extension from the company called JMeter. So what you can do is like you can also record the same thing using this the JMeter recording tool as well. So if it again.
Sometimes some UI perspective we have to see.
Uh-huh.
If the elements might code, they want to see as a UI structured properly.
No, it check UI. It only check the HTTP request. Yeah. So it's like get request, post request. Only these kind of things it will capture, and then you can only do that. So I have installed this JMeter tool. So we can also record using this JMeter tool. So you just need to. Oh, it is not responding. Maybe I need to. Yeah. So you just need to click this record button and then start performing the operations. Once everything is script is generated, you click this export JMeter scripts. So JMeter file extension is .jmx. So export to JMeter script. So you will have the script with the list of all the steps which you have performed on the project. For this, you don't need to configure the proxy and all. You just need to click the record and perform whatever you want to do it on the project. Yeah, it will create all that. So you just need to load it in the JMeter and you can see the complete test. So just before the session, I recorded one test. I'll directly open that. So once I record using this the tool, I mean the recording tool. So I have these steps. So it's navigating to the search page, and then it's also performing some other different operations. So once you have the list of steps, so what is that I want to do is like I want to run this and see whether it is performing all those steps in sequence. So what you can so to see the results, we need to add some kind of listeners. Listeners are basically to see the output of all these operations. When you are doing the debug mode or when you are developing the scripts, it's better to use these view results tree or view results table so that you can see the steps, whatever you have performed is the executed. You can see the response for each and every request. So there is a play button. You just need to click that so that you can see the output there. So it started execution. Oh, I have applied there. So so in the view results tree, when you are executing this test, actually what happens is like it just creates all the request in all the request whatever you have executed. You can see that each individual request, and you can see the request and response and whatever the sample you have passed. If it is a table, you just see all these requests in the form of table, and you can also verify whether everything is correctly working. Yeah, it's just the same kind of data. So this is how you can see the. So here I have some requests. So I just modified this script to perform some additional things. So right now, this test, what is that it is doing is like it's always uh, um, so it is the post in this post request. What is that I'm doing is like I'm sending some request. So when I'm sending some request, instead of always searching for the same string, I want to search using the different search strings. Maybe I want to pass different data. So for that, what I did is like I have created a config file. In this config file, I've entered some list of such strings in this CSV file. I want to use this CSV file while I'm executing this test. So I have here the list of, so I just have only one column that is such text column with the list of such strings as a CSV in CSV file. So to execute that, so here in the my post body, I just replace, previously there was some text whichever is captured in the default. So I just replace that with this so that it captures the value from my the CSV file. So these config files are global. So once you have this config file is in your thread group, you can access anywhere in your test. So here, such text is the column name I have in my CSV file. Our variable I have created here, it will get the value from the CSV and it will replace. So whenever you want to use some variable, you just need to use this curly bracket and then the dollar. It will take the value from that variable. And once I get this output, so I want to verify. I want to extract the product. Once I search for some products, so I get the list of products, right? I want to select the first one and then click that particular first product. So to get the first product, so for this, so the product, which product I want need to select that. Actually, I need to see it in the response. This is my response file for this search request. So in this search, so this is the search query in my result. I want to get the first product, which whatever is there here, and I want to click that one. So for that, what is that we need to do is like to extract this from the response. We need to write. We need to add post processor. We have like this pre-processor and post processor, right? So we need to add post processor and extract this value from the response and use that in the next request wherever you want to use. So to extract this, actually, if it is a JSON file, you can use something like JSON path tester, and you can write the JSON path for this to get this particular name. Or if you are having something like HTML, so you can also use something like XPath tester to extract the text from the HTML file, and then you can use that variable. So here my output is in the JSON format. So to get the first product, so the first product is like so the dollar means it will have all the complete tree. So in that results means I'll get the this results node. Inside the results node, I want to go and pick the particular item. So here what I did is like I added the JSON extractor, and then I specified give me the first result of ID means I'll get the first product ID, and then I want to pass that to the next text. So I want to navigate to the that particular recipe ID. So the URL will be updated with the first product, whatever you have selected. So this is something we call it as a correlation. So it is like when you are working in some web application or something, so you want to take the you logged into the system and you get some session ID and you want to use that session ID in the next request. So once you log in, so get the output in the response, extract that session ID and pass it session ID to the next request, so that it will keep, it still maintains that session ID and you can continue performing the other operations in the application. So this is something relation which we use most of the performance tools to extract something from the previous request and pass it to the next request. So
Does the file, the position of the file, does it affect the execution of the chapter?
no, the position of the file, even if you keep it somewhere else, sorry, where is that? No, I put it there. So it's basically look for the hierarchy, and then the order is like I just explained in the previous slide. So in that same order it will execute. So even though the data file is at the end, but it will first execute that config file and then the sampler and other stuff which I have explained there. So this is how you can create the test, and then yeah, yeah, yeah. I stopped when it is executing. That's why it is failed. So this is how we create a test, maybe through recording, or maybe you can also create manually, and all the steps whatever you want to perform. Once you have the script, then let me show you some script which I created for one of my previous project. So this is actually when I was working in my previous project, I created this test. So as I said, I've used here test fragments to group the different steps, different operations which are performed for different places in my application. So to make it more reusable. So all the product related samplers, I have kept it in the product section, maybe like search product, navigate to the particular product. Or if you see the login related stuff, maybe guest user, login user, register user, forget password, all this stuff. And the payments is like credit card and gift card, all these things I kept it here. So while I'm if I have some 4 or 5 different combination of tests, so I just need to reuse these things wherever I want. I don't need to write the same login script 5 places. So that's why you can also use this test fragments. It will give more reusability. And here, if you are having some step, inside this test fragment, instead of adding all the steps, I have created something like transaction controllers. These transaction controllers are like once you complete the execution, whatever the steps inside this, I want to capture how much time it is taking for this particular step to execute. If I have one step, so maybe it will give the aggregate that the time for one step. If you are having 5 steps, you want to see how much time it is taking time for to execute all the 5 steps. So you can generate the parent sampler, means it aggregate all those things and then it will group it to the parent one. So there are some other the different types of controllers. We have something like the random controller, once only controller. Once only controller is like you have some set of steps, and you want to execute something only once, and the remaining things you may want to execute for different maybe different users. So even if you add once only controller, even though if you are running for multiple users, it just executes only once. And I have one scenario for that. So here in one of the example, what I was trying to do is like I want to verify all the products for each category. So there are some 50 categories. In each category, I have some hundreds of products. I need to select each category and go to the all the products which are there in that category. So here what I did is like I added once only controller to get the all the categories. Once I get all the categories, I have the list. So to store all that categories in a list, what I did is like I have added a I have added a post processor. In this post processor, it's a JS processor. So here you can write whatever the logic you want to write using any of these languages. So you can use the Groovy, Bean Shell, or JavaScript, or any other language if it supports any all these things. So here, what I'm doing is like I'm storing all these things to the some particular file. So after that, I'm reading this file to perform the next operations. So the once only controller is like it just executes only once in your entire test suite. And here you can also have something like if conditions, while operate loop, or any other things. So when you are specifying the condition, you can directly compare two variables, or maybe you want to write some kind of Java. You can also write some JavaScript condition to check the some condition, and then based on the condition, you can execute whatever the logic you want to perform in that test. There are some other controllers actually I want to cover here, but let me just show you one more controller which I have used test. Something like interleave controller. What is this? Is like I have something like I can search the products based on some different criteria. I can just search. I can just search the product and apply some filter and sort, or I just want to apply only filter, or maybe I want to apply only sort. So if you take some scenario like not all the users will be doing always search and sort, right? They may be using maybe they may apply both or they may not apply. So some combination. So for this scenario, what I did is like the interleave controller, what it will do is like every time whenever you are running this thread, it will take each one based on the context. So there are some, so it will execute one by one. It's not always same step it will be executed. You can switch between, it's kind of, it will switch to the each user these steps. There are some other controllers like random controller. The random controller is like instead of switching one by one, it will pick one of these things randomly and it will execute that. So this is how you can define based on your the load scenario or the load pattern. You can define how exactly you want to do. Maybe in one of the scenario, what I want to do is like I want to distribute the load for different steps. Maybe I want to execute only the home page with this many percentage of users and the checkout with this many percentage of users. So if you want to divide your scripts, I mean your test into the different number of users load, we have something like the transaction controller, throughput controller. What is this throughput controller will do is like you can split your load based on the some percentage. So if I say I want to apply some 30% for this, or maybe the remaining percentage for the other things. So or maybe so based on your the load scenario, you can also apply whatever the combination of the user splitting and other stuff. Um, uh, Yeah, there are some other things also here, but I'm not going through all those things. If in case if you are interested, maybe I can share this with you. And in JMeter, by default, the JMeter provides some functionality. In addition to the default functionality, you can also use some plugins. These are freely available. You can use any of these existing open source. You can download these plugins and you can use it for your. You can also use these plugins for some of the tests. So we have some plugins for to. If you see here. There are something like this is something the plugin which I installed, parameterized controller, and if you see some listeners also have installed. These are the some synthetic report, response time versus thread. These are some different the listeners. And you also see some, if you want to add some more, you just need to go to the options menu, plugin manager, and you can add some additional plugins and you can use those things based on your need.
Hey, Srini, I have a question here.
Yes.
Can you explain like how exactly you're going to generate the load, or in terms of users, or where exactly you're configuring those things?
Yeah, that is my next slide.
Okay.
So once we have the script is ready and all the assertions, validations, and after debugging everything and writing the code, now we are ready to and allocating the scripts for different number of users and all this stuff. After defining all the control flow execution, now I want to apply some number of users and see how the server is responding. So here is where we will generate the load. So I just explained previously, thread group is something like which is like the number of users what you want to perform. You run the same script. So we have here something called a thread group. So this thread group is we just need to configure how many number of users you want to run. These are the concurrent users. Suppose if I say 10 users I want to use, and all these 10 users within how much time you want to start applying the load. So 1 second means within 1 second all the 10 users will come. If I say 10 means the 10 users will come in 10 seconds means it will every second one users will come and it will start using that system. And I want to apply this load for some 2 minutes or 1 minute. So what you can do is like you can select here the duration is 1 minute means 60 seconds. So it will execute that for 1 minute and you can see the response. So when you are applying the duration, you need to make sure that you are selecting the loop count is forever. So it is like even though all the users are ready, it will continue executing the all the 10 users are active. It will just do the same the load. They will just do the same request. They will just hit the same request continuously until this time ends. So if I run this, actually you can. So there is some operation like if something is failed, I just want to continue the execution. So here, if I run this, so I can see the all the requests which are hitting to the server, and you see that there are 10 users are active. So because I set to 1 minute, so it will wait for 1 minute to complete. So all these 10 users are actually hitting the server with all these URLs, and it's and it will at the end maybe if you are having something like aggregate report or something, you can also measure. You can also see. Um, how much is the average time it is taking for these requests and the 99 percentile, what is the minimum time, maximum time, are there any requests that are failing, what is the throughput? Throughput is like how much data it is sending and the number of bytes received and sent, all these things you can measure. Um, so it's you see that after 1 minute, so all the users are left and you can see that so this is how you can run the load and you can see how many number of users are running and whether what is the response, how the server is responding for this. I didn't enable these aggregate reports. If I have enabled, you can see all the for each request how many for each sampler how many requests are sent and what is the response time and all those things. So our main objective is like we want to measure how fast our system is responding. So once you complete the execution, we want to see what is the response time and all this stuff. We'll see some other metrics and how do we capture those things. So we discussed about number of users, ramp up period, iteration, schedule, these things. So by default in JMeter, it gives this thread groups. So thread group is having this configuration. Maybe if there are some other the plugins. There are some plugins like there are some plugins that are available from the BZM, that is JMeter. So you can also define a level thread group. It is like I want to run the 12 users. The total target is like a 12 number of users and 60 minutes. I want ramp up. So there are some different scenarios. If you want to execute, you can also run that. So in this case, what I'm trying to do is like I want to run 30 number of concurrent users in my system. How long I want to execute is 30 minutes. I want to run all these 30 active users. It's 5, and ramp up time is 5 minutes, and the step count is 6. 6 step count means in 6 steps you want to run load these 5 users, all these 30 users. So you can configure something like this thread and then add all the steps and you can export. There are some other scenarios like you want to ramp up and then ramp down. You can also do that. And there is some another thing is like uh, maybe you don't want to load all the users at a time. Or maybe you want to load the number of users in phases. So I want to run the first 100 users in the initial. After that, I want to run next 100 users maybe after 30 seconds, and then next 100 users maybe after 2 minutes. So you can also configure like how many number of users you want to load at a particular time, and then when do they want to disconnect from the session. All those things also you can configure. So based on your load scenario, what is that the requirement? So you can configure whatever the pattern you want. These are like the different thread groups. Sorry, these are like different thread groups. So this is one of the thread group. So here I just explained, right? It's like I want to run some 30 users, and then 30 users they want to join in 5 minutes, and the thread. So in 3 steps, and then they want to run my the the script for 180 minutes. So this is how you can configure. There are some other thread groups, something like the concurrent thread group, and there is one more thing is also there. So you can use those thread groups and you can configure.
You have configured access and somewhere.
For
example, trying to build some tool services.
So this is my, for example, request. You want to validate the response code is 200 or not. So what you can do is like for this request, I want to add a session. So just click on that request and select the accession. And here the response accession. I want to verify something in the response. And here you can choose the response code and enter the response code 200. So it will look for the 200 as a response for this.
Accession on the response time. The throughput time. Let's have some 5 services. And then I have, I want to know whether those 5 services are trying to give me a response. If 50 users are trying to access those 5 services.
Yeah, I forgot to add this aggregate report when I was running before. Maybe if I run it again, you can see that how it is. You can see here when it starts execution. So these are the requests, all these requests, and you can see here how many samples are running and how much is the average response time for this. So for 17 requests, the average is this much, and 90th percentile median, and minimum is this much, maximum is this much. This is what we are asking.
Yeah, I'm asking, so let's say I want to fail the test. The response is taking more than 1 minute. I will fail this. Let's say the service is giving me responses. Okay. I want to fail the particular test is running more than 1 minute.
No, this is for that kind of thing. Actually, I have not tried, but this is basically to apply the load continuously and verify how much is the response. So in your case, you want to say like it is taking more time and you don't want to continue the execution. So that's like
after you get the response, what you can do with it.
So this is the so in this once I execute this, so here it is very no issues here, but in practical scenario, what will happen is like when I apply the load, so some of the requests maybe it may take more time. It's taking more time to respond. So usually what we do is like when we do the load test, we don't just apply 1,000 users every time. What we do is like we test it in the step by step. So we take some 10 users, after that 100 users, after that 500 users, something like that. So you first apply 10 users for half an hour and you see what is the pattern, how much is the response. After that you apply 100 users, what is the response. So compare the previous with the next one. So previously for 10 users, my server is responding in 0.5 second, now 1.5 second. It is like something because more number of users added, it is taking, or if you are applying 1,000 users or 2,000 users, maybe it is taking more time, maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds. Maybe you don't want to accept those. So that time you need to report saying that when I apply less number of users, it is response fast, but when I apply this many number of users, it is taking more time. But as per the requirement, we need to support this many number of users should be for the users it within 2 seconds or something, but it is taking more time, and you need to report that as a bug.
I have to plan.
Yeah, we need to analyze the results, compare these things, and then you need to report that.
Okay, so Srini, hi, this is Chandrakant.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. So just a couple of things I was thinking. So first of all, it's a very good presentation of the JMeter's abilities on what it can do. One thing which I wanted to check is if I am responding to a customer proposal and if I want to add some performance testing capabilities in my proposal, so at what point of time should I consider JMeter? Because there are other tools like, let's say, WindRunner, Load Runner, and Performance Center, right? So if I want to actually push and sell JMeter more than others, so what do you think is the main selling point for me to tell the customer saying, let's use JMeter and not Performance Center?
Yeah, there are so many, as you said, there are some other tools are available, Load Runner and some other tools. So the advantage compared to the other tools is like, first thing is like it is open source. If you say the Load Runner or other tools, it's like expansive tools. And it supports some basic protocols, whatever we want to use in a usual web application or mobile application. So you can use it for common web applications or database or LDAP or any other protocols if you want to test in your application. If you are having those things, you can consider this. And it has something like good, very good reporting capability also. So I'll show you some kind of HTML reports, how do we generate and execute those things. And it is supports multiple platforms as well. So you can use this tool in all the different platforms. I that in the introduction topic. And it is customized. It's not just a record and play. If you want to make any changes, you can make those changes and use it for your config, whatever the requirement.
Yeah, thanks. So does it give reports in graphical format?
Yeah, I can show you some reports.
Yeah, sure. So we look at it. Just one more thing before we go on. If I'm running the test, we're considering some number of concurrent users. Let's say I'm considering 100 concurrent users and running the test. And what is the general deterioration or the breakage point that we generally observe? Let's say after 50 users, the performance of the application starts deteriorating, or is it like after 60 users, the performance starts going down? So is there a breakage point generally?
Here we don't have that. Maybe even for your scenario also, you want to get the alert if it is exceeding this. So for that, actually, this doesn't provide directly. Maybe you can have some kind of tool in your server, some application performance monitoring tool, something like Dynatrace or what is it, New Relic, this kind of things if you have set up in your server. So when you are running this load test, and you can see there, and you can set some alerts there. In the New Relic, there are some application performance monitoring tools. You can set some alerts, and you will get the notification for this particular request. It is crossing this many number of times. You are getting this many number of errors. So all those kind of things, you can set the alerts there. You just need to install some kind of monitoring tool in your server, and you can get the those kind of details.
Okay, so does it also show me some status of how the CPU is doing in terms of memory usage and all that? Or is it outside?
For CPU usage and all, actually, we need to have some performance by default. So if you are having these application performance monitoring tools, by default, those things will provide the monitoring your server and memory. But if you want to do those kind of stuff here in the JMeter, you can do that using the perform listener. So there is something called performance metric collector. So what you need to do is like you just need to add that server URL and which port you want to listen, and then you can also specify CPU, memory, disk IO, all these things. So it will capture those things, and you can see that in the graph here.
Yeah, sure. So, sorry, actually, John, late, and then I need to also jump in on the call at 3:30. So it's a great presentation. Yeah, thanks for doing this demo, and I'm sure people, if they have anything else, they can also anytime reach out to you. But otherwise, I'll also sync up with you if there's anything that I need. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the next topic is
Srini?
like the existing.
Srini
So
here. Srini
sorry?
Ketki, one quick question. Regarding memory leakages, is there a way we can track memory leakages in JMeter?
Memory leakages, you cannot see directly that memory leakages. You need to observe the server closely and see what is exactly is happening. So in some cases, what will happen is like your server is opening the connection for the users and it is not closing those connections. So in that case, what will happen is like that user session is active in the memory and it is not closing. Or maybe in some cases, what will happen is like if you are navigating to the same, if you are having more number of users, so it's basically based on the context. You need to see that the memory leakage. But here, if you want to monitor you can monitor the how much memory it is utilized by the system and the leakage and all. You need to debug the server and identify what is that causing the memory leakage.
Okay.
Yes, Rini, does it
Yeah.
get the metrics of SQL Server usage also in terms of stored procedure wise?
Is that?
And like, does it have a capability to add a SQL Server monitoring also as part of this? Like the SQL procedures, how exactly it is being consumed for different requests?
SQL procedure, stored procedures I have not tried, but some kind of DDL statement or DML statements if you want to run some DML statements or select statement, those kind of things you can do that. But I have not
Not
tried
like that.
stored
So
procedure.
while
I think.
running this particular test, anyway, like internally, if it is using suppose some SQL related objects, so
Mhm.
does it get the metrics of those things? A kind of SQL
So you
profiler kind
want
of
to
thing.
know which query is taking more time.
Exactly. So SQL profiler kind of interface.
So those kind of stuff, actually, you can do that. Even in my past project, I have noticed those kind of things. We have used the Neuralink tool as a application performance monitoring. So when I was applying some load, actually, what happened is like in my results, the percentage of errors are increasing. So I don't know what to do when I look at the JMeter. It's just saying there are some failures. I want to know what exactly it is, why it is failing. So I went to the Neuralink. So in the Neuralink, you can see all the requests which are sent to the server. You can monitor all those things. So it's like you can go to the whatever the level you want in the. I think App Dynamics and other things also provides this kind of capability. So there you can see in which code, I mean, in which the class file or code you have that the problem are in which query is taking more time or which query is failing, which query is causing the failure for this request. Those kind of things you can easily monitor if you are having some kind of APM tool.
Right. So, Vinith, sorry. So, I think a lot of questions are coming towards server-side monitoring, right? How is the server responding or the SQL server? So, JMeter basically, I think, is a tool. It's a request response kind of tool. So, you can only from a client side see
Yeah.
what is happening, right? So, you are the client, just like a browser. So, you will not have access to those servers, and if you want to monitor those, you'll have to, that's a separate effort or a tool which has to go on those servers.
Yeah.
That's one. And like in our VSTS, we do have an integrated solution, right? Where we also install an agent on the server and try getting on the same dashboard, but JMeter will not do that. I think there was
In
one.
JMeter, as I said, maybe if you want to capture those things, I think you can add these lists, but I haven't tried Performon. So you just need to specify that the server URL, IP address, server IP address and which port is enabled in that system, and then you can specify the memory or something. You can see that memory graph here, how much memory it is consuming for that particular server when you're running the test.
There should be some kind of agent that is there, like
Yeah,
performer agent that is there in that
yes,
server, right?
yeah, you need to enable that.
Yeah.
Right. So
You should listen to this port.
you have to understand that also, that we will reach the peak of our host machine also, like from where we are testing. So one machine might not be enough to do all that, like collecting matrix. So you are increasing the traffic from the server to getting that matrix on your server, on your system again. Probably if you go to, like, 50-60 users, even your machine will give up, like, it can't handle more requests, and then collecting the server matrix, it will again be added load. So you need a hub kind of setup, or do a separate thing in an ideal, if you are doing a full scale thing. For, like, just small kind loads, probably you can use these plugins to get the performance indicators, right? I was saying, I think Chandrakant, he asked a very good question. I think we skipped that. One important thing, like, since we also don't have many projects related to load testing, what he asked, I think, was when can we get started with load test, right, Shini?
Uh-huh.
So I think he was pointing to when should we do the load test, towards the end of the project, beginning of the project, where do we start? So I think you did it for this project. Do you have some suggestions on that? Like, is the right
First,
time
let me complete my session so that we can discuss those questions, if you don't mind, because we are already overshooting the time. If you don't mind, is that okay?
Sure, okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely take that point. So here to execute the tests, we just have seen that how do we execute using the JMeter UI. We have the play button, and the in a practical scenario, actually, we don't use this UI to execute the performance test because the UI is something like which consumes some the additional resources. And when you are applying the load, even we don't apply too many the listeners also, because the listeners will consume some memory, some other stuff, because of it captures the data and create these graphs and that. So we don't keep all those what is that listeners, and then we most of the time what we do is like we execute using the command line. So this is a simple command. We just need to specify the test file and where do you want to keep the results. And you can also specify the output. What is this will do is like it will create a folder which with the HTML report. So you can see the HTML report for all the users, response, and throughput, and some other stuff you can capture. You can see that. I'll show you that. So, for example, in this. Where is that? Here I have some. I executed some tests. So if you see here, there is some HTML report. So what is this HTML report will give me is like how much duration it is executed, and what is the some statistics like what is the average response time for each request, and what is the maximum, minimum, and other stuff, throughput. There are some other things also there. If there are any failures, what is the error for that failure? You can also see, is it some 500 error or some 404 error, those kind of things. The top 5 errors, and it also has some kind of charts. I didn't execute for more duration. If you have executed for more duration, you can see some graph. Here the granularity is 1 minute. I just executed for a few seconds. Otherwise, that's why you don't see any graph kind of things. So here you can see something like response time over time and the bytes throughput. And you can also see something like hits per second, how many hits per second, and the transactions per second. So all these graphs will be automatically generated once you run that command line. It will generate this graph, this HTML report. You can take whichever the screenshot and send that to the team, saying that this is where it is taking more time, or maybe it is taking more CPU, or any whatever you have observed in the results. So that's how you can execute using the non-GUI. You can also execute the JMeter test in TFS Online. So we have in TFS Online something like the load test. In the load test, if you want to run the Visual Studio, I mean web performance test, you can use using the Visual Studio test. If you want to run the JMeter test, you just need to select the Apache JMeter. Once you select that, it is asking my test script file. In case, along with the test script file, if you have some supporting file, in my previous example, I have some test data in the CSV file. You can link that, and the number of agents, load duration, and which location you want to use. You can also select these things and run the test.
Number of agents,
sir,
what will the number of agents signify?
It's the number of users. So what will happen is like, so it will, what if you are running in the TFS Online, what will happen is like, it will create some containers in the Azure, and if you are having some data, it will also create some blobs, and it will apply this all this load from those containers. So it will generate the load. It's like, instead of using your own VMs, so what you can do is like, if you run here, actually in Azure, it will automatically create those VMs and it will apply to them.
The number of agents doesn't actually correspond to actual users, right? It will actually correspond to the number of VMs in Azure, right?
No, it's I think it's the number of users. I think so. Yeah.
So what I think it goes like this. So it creates replication, right? Agent also it creates replication. This will have its own users.
Yeah, that's what.
All this
This will have its own
this will have its own users. So the first application will work for 5 users on that service. You will create with the service. There is 5 users with whatever limits he has given. The same test will be run, and all these agents. Agents are given the replication of that. Whatever you say.
So this is how you can configure some users, and you can execute in the TFS. And uh, there is a tool, the web cloud execution tool, the Blaze. So they also provide the execution of the tests in the BlazeMeter. It's like they have so much of configuration. You can do so much of customization before you execute. Even if you want to apply a load from different geographical location, or some other things, if you want to do, you can do that also using this BlazeMeter. So, and distribution execution, as I said, JMeter supports the remote execution as well. So instead of running all the users from your local system, because it occupies your CPU and memory, so you can distribute the load to it's like a client server. It's like a master slave kind of environment you can set up. So you can have multiple VMs, maybe in the local environment or maybe in the cloud, and you have your local system, and you just initiate this test script. And what will happen is like, the script will be uploaded to all these places, and it will execute, and at the end you will get the results. So for that, you need to update the all these the slaves, the IP address in your local system. So there is some location JMeter properties file. You just need to update this variable with the list of all the IPs of that slaves. Once you add this all the IPs of that slaves, and if you go back to the JMeter, until the run, you see there is a remote start. You can see the list of all the wherever you want to run. If you want to run it in all these systems, you just need to say remote start all. Your script will be uploaded to all the system, and it will distribute the load, and it will execute that. It depends on the scenario. If you are having too many users, I think in my previous project, if you are having something like 16 GB RAM and some good amount of processor, so you can run around 2,000 to 3,000 users. So if you are having more than that, maybe you need to have some additional system. Otherwise, if you are having less than that, just have one system, it will take care of that. I have also provided the link that will help you to set up this remote execution. In some cases, when you are executing, you may want to test some different kind of network bandwidths. So JMeter also, you can customize some kind of the different, maybe if you are using some web application from the mobile, maybe some different carriers, you may have some 3G, which will have less speed, or 4G, it may have different speed, Wi-Fi, you may be seeing something different. So what you can do is, like, if you are having these VMs, so you can set in those VMs whatever the speed you want. So when the requests are coming from that VM, so you can see how much is the time it is taking if you are having the something in that particular bandwidth. So it's like you are just restricting the bandwidth of that particular system, and you want to see how many number of users it is the server is can able to how fast the server is responding if someone is requesting with the slow bandwidth. So this is the again there is a file called JMeter properties. If you go to the install location, so you can see that the JMeter properties file. You just need to update that JMeter properties file with this. This is just a text configuration text editor. You can open it and then you can modify. So I have also provided where exactly you need to modify that. And at the end of the test, maybe you can, we discussed about the JMeter listener. It's like you can see aggregate reports and other things. HTML report, I just show you how does the HTML report is created. And you can also see the results in the BlazeMeter and TFS. Once you execute, they also provide some graphs and reports. You can download the results file, and you can also load that results file to your JMeter, and you can analyze anyway is fine. And in some cases, instead of just you may be running the same test in different times in your system, and you keep track of previous execution and the current execution, and you want to see the real-time results when you are applying the load. And so if you are running the command line, you don't have any UI to see the results. So in that case, maybe you can do something like this. Maybe you can set up some kind of time series database. So InfluxDB is some kind of time series database, and you can connect InfluxDB to the Grafana. So that is basically it will show you the reports in the form of views, some graphs. So to configure this InfluxDB backend listener in your JMeter test. So what will happen is, like, when you are executing the test, so all the results will be captured and stored in this InfluxDB, and whatever is there in the InfluxDB, you can see that in the Grafana reports. So I have also set up that. So
HTML reports would be there even if we are running from command line, right?
Yeah, if you are running in the command line, HTML report will be generated after completion of the entire test execution.
Okay, this is during
Yeah, real time, real time
real time.
and a time series database. So it's like whatever is happening, it captures and it will be there in the database, and you can see that on the fly. For this, I think I have some Grafana set up here. So here you can see, let's see, I think. We just executed some iterations, right? The test. So at the time of execution, actually in my test, I have already configured the backend listener. So this backend listener is storing all the details into the graphite, and there is a database table called JMeter. From my local system, it's taking all the values and it is saving all these results into the database. So, and if you want to see those results, so this is how you can see at the time of execution itself, you can see this the database. So some group by R, if you want to apply some formula, based on that, your report will be generated, and you can see that in the dashboard. So this data will be there in